going live, and we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to #Bilingual We, episode 6. Woo-hoo! Screen time and raising bilingual children. My name is Heather Robertson-Devine. I am the founder of what's that company? Bookstill Sir. And this is my co-host, Christa Jimenez of Pura Vida Moms. Say hello.
Hello.
Here. Good. We love the new headset this week. That's rocking it, making us feel professional. We're going to use the, show notes like total pros this week. Our mission at #BilingualWe is to bring together bilingual families so that we are working together, supporting each other, and raising our children to the best of our abilities. We are going to take a 2-week break after this to give you some time. Oh, I'm reading the show notes. That's funny. To give you some time to order some books. Hey. That's what Krista wrote. That's great. Before we start our next series, because in our next series we are actually going to talk about some board books and using board books with 0 to 5-year-olds. And those board books are available through Bookstill Sir. We're going to use the baby board book bundle. I believe that's what it's called. I like to give you a mouthful. And so if you find us on, which you should, go to us at puravidamoms.com, and you can find there the #BilingualWe promotion will get you 15% off your cart at bookstillsur.org or bookstillsurstore.org. So, and we want you to use that coupon code so that you can purchase the baby bundle. Board book baby bundle. It'll be in our show notes.
Bundle.
Baby board book bundle. Oh.
And then that'll give you the
haciendo trabalenguas en español conmigo.
Some alliteration too. Yeah, so each week we'll feature one of those books in our baby board book bundle with activities from us and how to use them effectively to raise bilingual kids. So you'll want to have that baby board book bundle ahead of time so you can go along right with us. So, yeah.
Great. So, Krista, you want to just continue along, introduce our special guest for today and our topic?
Yeah. So, our key question for this week is, what does a positive relationship between screen time and bilingualism look like, and why? And we have with us Aileen, the co-founder of MamaLingua, which is an app for parents who are wanting to introduce more Spanish into their home, whether or not those parents speak Spanish or not. So welcome, Aileen.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. A little location change there.
Yeah, the kids were coming in, so.
Yep, so we're all moms, and part of our reality is just carving some time out to make our bilingual community a little bit better and a little bit bigger. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Aileen, and how you ended up on this show.
Well, I'm the co-founder of MamaLingua. MamaLingua is an app that we created to help parents teach and to raise bilingual children without having the knowledge of speaking that language. So we've organized the content by categories that parents interact with their kids, like bathing, changing, playing, and provide parents with relevant conversation phrases and words so that they can learn. Especially, and this environment is so beneficial just because it's such a repetitive environment that we live in with kids. So it kind of worked out that way, and I'm here because I met you through the grapevine, and you've invited me to the show.
Yeah, so Aileen and I, for the next about 12 to 14 hours, live pretty near each other, and then she's getting ready to move back to her home of Austin.
Yep.
Yeah, so thanks for spending. What's that?
Where this all started.
Yep. Well, we're glad to have you. Thanks for taking the time on your last night in Denver. So talk to us a little bit about, I know you and I have had this conversation, but not all of our bilingual we community has had it. What does bilingualism look like in your house, and why?
In my home, I speak only Spanish to my children, and my husband speaks only English to our children. Everything that happens in our home that I'm interacting with them is in Spanish. I read only in Spanish. I do everything in Spanish. Anything that has to do with English, I pretty much hand it off to my husband. And so that's how it looks in my house.
And why did you choose to do it that way?
I wanted them to learn Spanish, and if they associated me with English, then they were going to talk to me in English. And I didn't want to mix it up, because in their mind, then it wouldn't be as defined. And so I think there's been research about that it being the most successful, because then the child starts associating you with a language. Mm-hmm. So when I pick up an English book and I start reading it, they know that that's not the book that I'm supposed to read. I'm supposed to read only the Spanish. So they associate me with Spanish.
Yeah. So that's pretty much like we've talked about, the one parent, one language household.
Correct.
Awesome. So what's hard about that?
So what's hard is that my kids are now at the age that they understand that I also understand English, and so now they have become lazy in speaking Spanish because they know I speak English. Because in family, when my husband is around, obviously the conversation, if I'm talking to my kids, it's in Spanish, but if I'm talking to my husband, it's in English, and they hear that. And so little by little, they've been transitioning into speaking more English. And so now my challenge is having to repeat it in Spanish and have them repeat it. So, because it's not that they don't want to speak Spanish, it's the loss of retention. Like, their brain is going to go to the fastest language that they can access. And right now it's English. So unfortunately, that's where I'm at right now. But their comprehension is 100%. And, since they ended school, they're speaking a lot more Spanish, because I've been on them about, like, repeating the things in Spanish and having them repeat it back to me in Spanish.
Yeah, that comprehension versus production. Super tough. We're dealing with that over here too, and it was because of school. When we went to school in English, then we wanted to be like our classmates and speak English. So we're talking a little bit about screen time, because inevitably when you talk about any sort of bilingual models, there's always a language of power and a minority language, right? So you're talking about how in the United States, the language of power is English, and the minority language that you're trying to pass on is Spanish. And it's not always easy to keep that minority, to be the only keeper in the household of the minority language, which I know that, Heather, you face sometimes as well, because you're the person in your household who speaks Spanish to your son. In my house, we are both the holders of the minority language, but the second we walk out the door, that power shift happens, and the kids know. So I don't think you can really talk about bilingual household models without talking a little bit about screen time and resources and things like that. So what does screen time look like at your house? What language are the kids watching their screens in? Are they allowed to watch their screens? Why not? Talk to us a little bit about that.
So obviously, I'm looking for all kinds of resources that reinforces Spanish. So I look to books and TV and the computer and music to help with the reinforcement, aside from also community, finding friends that speak Spanish, other households that speak Spanish, so that they see that it's not an isolated, they're part of a bigger community, and that it's just not them. So in terms of screen time, in the morning, I do allow TV. Each one gets to pick a show, and it has to be in Spanish. So we already know on Netflix that there's a way that you can change it to Spanish. So they get to choose from those shows that are in Spanish. And so we have our favorites. We have Octonaut, that's in Spanish. Zumubafu, which is also in Spanish. Cat in the Hat, Curious George. I can't remember what other else. So they get to choose from those, and I like the first two because it teaches them about animals and facts. So a lot of the games that we play also in the car are like the animal guessing games. And so it has taught me to actually expand my vocabulary because I learned my animals here in the United States. So I know fur and claws and mammals and herbivores all in English, but not necessarily in Spanish. So these shows have helped us learn together. And so we talk about it after we watch TV. And then, so that's predominantly where I use screen time. I don't do audiobooks yet just because I still have a pretty good selection of books, and my son is really into superheroes. So I do a lot of the translation on the fly at the moment because I haven't found too many that are bilingual.
Yeah.
Eileen,
can you tell our viewers a little bit about? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
My kids are 3 and 5.
3 and 5. So, is your 5-year-old reading yet?
He's starting to read, and and this is another pet peeve. We have Bob books, but we don't have the equivalent in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been trying to teach him to write through phonetics. Like I've made flashcards on my own, and then we work together on the phonetics and writing. Like I just have a vis-a-vis board, like a what's it called?
Yeah, whiteboard.
A whiteboard.
Yep.
And so we work on those together on the writing.
So not to get super nerdy, but I've been doing a lot of research lately to try and figure out where the kindergarten level books are in Latin America. And it seems to be, and I'm not definitive on this because I don't know all of Latin America, clearly, and nor do I pretend to, but it seems to be that most, because literacy isn't taught until children are 6 years old, most of the books are then not the 1 or 2 sentence simple decodable books. They're 3 to 5 sentences per page, and that's because literacy is taught when they're 6 years old, entering, which is generally first grade. And so, that's where the music and the poetry is so key for kids to be able to listen to that. And then, and it's really great that you're doing the writing activities because that's going to really support them as well.
There's one workbook, I mean, this is not about screen time, but like what I'm using called Poquito, which is a workbook, and it's pretty simple sentences. And so it's actually a very good book. I've enjoyed it. It starts with the basic. Mi mamá me ama, mi mamá me mami, me ima, whatever it's called. And so it goes with the sounds like M-A, P-A, S-A-A. And it does like brief sentences. So we've been doing that. In terms of music, I mean, we have an Alexa tower. So since I don't know a lot of the Spanish artists, I might say one, like put Pandora Station Shakira, and then like we have a different song coming up. And so at least they're hearing it. And they love Shakira's Africa song from the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that teaches them culture. I mean, now they can hear the songs and they know, oh, that's Mommy's song. Like anytime anyone hears salsa comes, they're like, oh, that's Mommy's song.
That's great.
So going back a little bit to the books, because Heather, I'm finding a little bit about what you're finding is that literacy is taught a little bit later, and I'm feeling like as teachers that we might get a little too nerdy, but that Latin America is spending in that extra year just enriching the oral and the pre-reading skills rather than diving them right in kindergarten, which I know has started to be a little bit controversial here in the States with the emergence of Common Core and the testing starting earlier. So I found what you found, right, is that we are that first graders in Latin America are starting their literacy, and I'm finding the silabarios, that every country has their own silabario, which I think is kind of what Eileen's talking about with the Poquito workbook. In Costa Rica, it's the silabario castellano. I know there's one in Mexico that's called I think it's the silabario mexicano, but that we are starting with longer sentences and doing things by the sounds and not necessarily by sight words like we do in the States. So what's a bilingual parent to do when their kid may be learning to read in English at school before they would if they were in Latin America? Like, do you have any tips?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I've been talking a lot about this the last few days. Yeah, so I think some of the strongest things to do are actually when we talk about the board books in the next few weeks, those are repeated texts, and so there's a pattern in them, and the complexity of them is rich enough that it's going to be challenging for the students, and it's a great place to start. It's a really great place to start. So repeated text is a great one. Also poetry. Most of the poems and children's songs are as well repeated, and that's also, those are the beginning skills where kids start to understand that start to make a correlation between letters and the sounds they make, as well as the words and the sounds they make. And just figuring out like what words are is really huge for them. So so the repeated texts, which tend to be more the babyish books, but they're definitely where you want to go to, as well as poetry. There's a lot of poetry that is repeated, and that rhythm and that cadence is huge for kids, and also it just helps them to love it. And Aileen, you know, you talking about Shakira and how the kids love the Africa song. It's because it's fun, right? And they feel it, and that's exactly what poetry brings to children and their literacy as well. So if we can stay there as long as we can, and be patient, and know that it's going to come, especially with Spanish, because as soon as they figure out the code, which there is a really great code, as soon as they do, they're going to fly, and it's just gonna happen like crazy. But we just need to be patient and know that it's going to.
So my son, after he learned his sounds, right? Because we worked really hard on sounds, and my kids are at Montessori school, so they do that very well. So I did the same thing at home with the sounds, and once he figured out the sounds, then like spelling became so much easier. And so we constantly play with words during the day on how to pronounce it. So he'll start looking at letters. He's like, oh look, it's an M, like mommy, madera. Like he'll start saying M words, and then and spelling, and like all of a sudden, like we'll spell together because we know the sounds now. So we're like, oh, como suena la M, como suena la A, ma, y. And so that's how we're working on it. And then along the same lines, what you just said, Heather, about the board books, like reading with them and just pointing out the basic words, because we have basic, easy Spanish books like Camisa Roja. What was that? What's that book? Él tiene camisa roja, él tiene la camisa azul. And then he has his shirt upside down, and it's like, ay caramba. An easy board book. I don't know. So that's kind of where I was starting. And then you mentioned something about rhythm. So there's this book that my mom just found. It's Little Libros, and it's like all song. I think it's all song. Luna, luna, cuna. Luna, luna, sol. Luna, luna, something. And so my son was like reading it with me, and since it was such a catchy song, he felt like he was actually reading the book because he had memorized the easy song.
So it's we can't be afraid of the memorization, because it's actually the memorization that helps them to make the connection between words and sounds. And so we want to encourage that memorization. I know that we all kind of go, well, they're not really reading because they're memorizing, but really it's just one of the steps. It's one of the pre-reading steps. And the Little Libros, I want to give a shout out for them. They're two moms that decided that they wanted high quality books for their kids, and they're amazing women. So you know, I like them on Facebook. I hope you guys do too. You know, technically they're my competitors, but I don't care. Our world needs more. So, and they're doing great stuff. So, Little Libros are a great company. So, I'm glad that you mentioned them. They're really great.
We'll add a link to them in our show notes.
Yes, that sounds great. Aileen, you're doing some really cool things with your kids. Just keep it up, right? I mean, It's really awesome.
Yeah.
Christa, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to go back a little bit to talk to not to lose focus too much on our purpose today, which is screen time, right? And we have a super nerdy article from Heather from WIDA, and in that article, there's a little bit of correlation, I guess, between what Aileen said about Shakira and her kids loving that song, and that, Heather said, well, it has to be fun. And I think, Heather, something that you did in the classroom using screen time was determining that kids are really engaged in screen time. And so it's a great jumping off point to get them to further engaged into those pre-reading skills. But Heather, what's the answer? Like how much is too much screen time, or what do you think about screen time?
So Aileen already said the answer, which I wanted to bring up and to highlight. Eileen said that when her kids watch TV and when she watches TV with them, she's learning new vocabulary, right? And they're learning vocabulary specifically to animals. But it doesn't just stay there. It just doesn't stay in the place of the TV, right? She takes it to a new space, into the car, and when they're in the car, then they talk about it. So there's no answer of like right or wrong enough. You guys know, and your kids will tell you what's enough. Like they're gonna get tired. They're gonna, and at all ages it's a little bit different, right? Like at 3 and 5, it's about 15 minutes. I mean, my 9 and 13-year-old could do screen time for 2 hours, but really they don't want to. They just want to do it for about 30 minutes. So they'll max out, and you can also max them out around 30 and give them a break and go back. But what the key is, what the answer is what Aileen already said, is that you need to talk about it. You have to have dialogue around it. If you don't have the dialogue, then it's lost. And so one of the things in the nerdicle of the week, and it's really nerdy, but I got to give a shout out to my amazing friend who put together this. WIDA is an organization that does most of the testing for English language learners. It's out of my alma mater, the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And yes, there is an article written by me in there, so I didn't bring it up just for that. But I brought it up because of on pages 9 through 13, there's actually a rubric or like a series of questions that you can use. And those series of questions are really great for us adults to use to think about the games that our kids are playing and the technology that our kids are using to see if it's high quality. So I'd really encourage you, as heady as the article may be, or as, if it does shy you away, check out those questions and just go through those questions and think about them. I don't think I mentioned who put this together. So this was put together by Megan Rothschild. She is a PhD graduate from the University of Wisconsin. She studied games and learning, and she's really studied hard our kids and our little kids, our 0 to 5-year-olds, and she is committed to them learning as much as possible. And so all the information here is very thoughtful, and we hope to have her on the show at some point. She's got some exciting stuff happening in her life, and I can't talk about it yet, but hopefully we can at some point on here, and we can have her on, and she can share more of her stuff with us. So did I answer your question, or did I go too long?
No.
I warned you about. I warned you.
No, we're right on time. The question that I have, and maybe it's a bit of devil's advocate, and some of it's just maybe a little bit of realism, right? Like, sometimes I'm with my kids all day, every day, and sometimes we kind of need a break from each other. And we do audiobooks, and sometimes we do some independent play, but a really great way for Eliana to let down and kind of relax is through her screen time. And I want to allow her that with high-quality materials, but we're not debriefing about it because, quite frankly, I'm not really watching alongside with her. I know what songs she's seeing, and I know, I will ask her questions about, what happened to Peppa Pig today? What did you think about that? How did he feel? But I don't actually, it's kind of like her time and my time. Sometimes she'll have screen time up and I'll just read a novel because I need that every day. So is that bad?
No. I think kids learn from every medium, and I mean, we are in a technology world, so I think that it's just a new. I mean, we learn from technology as well, and so do they. As long as you're not abusing it. I mean, I'm going to mention another company, Mundo Danugo, right? My kids, whenever they're in the car and my daughter falls asleep, my son knows that he gets screen time. I allow him to play with things that are in Spanish again. So, we'll watch together Mundo Lanugo, or even the other one that I love is Endless ABC, and now they have a Spanish edition. And these are two, okay, yeah, it's screen time, but they're both educational.
Yep.
And then the other thing that he likes to watch is superhero toys, and so they unpack the toys.
Yeah.
And how to play the toys.
So sorpresa.
Yeah, and so I try to first search it first in Spanish.
Yeah.
Eventually it ends up in English because there's just so much more content in English. But at least it starts with Spanish.
Right.
And so all that, they're just such sponges, and they start absorbing. I mean, I can't tell you the words that come out of my son's mouth, and I'm like, well, I didn't say that. That was the TV.
Well, and something I love about Spanish is that then, at least for those dang huevo sorpresa, but they're opening up these eggs and they're seeing this character, and then the women describe it, or the men, and they show you all the different facets of it, and they're from all different Spanish-speaking countries. And so I can tell sometimes when Eliana's been watching something from Spain or from South America or from Argentina, because she mimics that little accent. And that is so important, I think, for Spanish speakers to be able to understand not just their own home dialect or their own country slang. So that is something that I see is really positive for screen time.
And the other thing I think that the article said was about technology. Now we get to use FaceTime and Skype to talk to people around the world, and that gives them a more global perspective. We use Skype to talk to our cousins in Mexico and our cousins in Venezuela, and that gives them, conversation. That's valuable as well.
Right.
I did want to point out page 5 of the article in the interview with Constance Steinkuhler, who is she's definitely the leading woman around technology in education and research around it. She was she was a consultant in the White House for a while, something fancier than I'm giving her. But the question that Megan asked her was, how do games allow students to engage in higher order thinking and use academic language to problem solve? And she goes in and she talks about the scientific reasoning around games. And games like Minecraft are the most incredible for scientific reasoning. And Aileen, your son is probably about a year away from Minecraft, and you can change Minecraft language into Spanish as well. And so, I mean, that's a really fun, exciting one. And you want to talk about language that they come up with? I need a dictionary to talk to some of my 4th graders, because I'm I have no idea what this is. And then they have all these algorithms memorized for how to create different things. I mean, it's intense, and it's really awesome. I mean, it's really awesome stuff. So there's definitely value there. I also wanted to say, Christa, in terms of you saying you let your daughter have her screen time, I totally agree with Aileen. It is their time, and it is important that they have their time, but also give yourself some credit. You're still asking her, how was your day? How was Pepita? And it doesn't mean that you need to know X, Y, and Z about it. Heck, I didn't know how to play any of the games my students played. I just talked to them about it, though. And then I learned, but I didn't necessarily know how to play them. And when they'd ask me how I do something, I was like, oh, I don't know. Ask your friend. I have no idea. So we don't always need to be the expert, right? We can hand that off and we can give it to someone else. So for sure, encourage it. There's so much wealth there, and talk about it. But talking about it doesn't mean you need to have a word wall.
Well, I'll have to do a little bit of a self-plug, but we've been watching those Huevo Sorpresa, so if you haven't seen them, definitely grab YouTube Kids and Google them. But we made our own.
We call them, in Chile, we call them kinders.
Yeah, but have you seen the actual videos? So they take these. It's kind of like a Kinder Egg, but they cover an Easter egg with Play-Doh essentially and pull random stuff out of it, and then they narrate it. So Eliana was really into these, and it was just a point where I was like, we cannot watch these anymore. Like, there's a point. But then I also have some trepidation about her being exposed to, like, look, this is Anna, this is Elsa, this is Hello Kitty, this is, I'm like, we don't need all this commercialization right now. She doesn't need to know what those are. And so we made our own, and we found toys around the house, and we put them in an Easter egg, and then we made our own Play-Doh, and she got to narrate the huevo sorpresa as we opened it up. And I'll have to post it. It's really it's just a small thing, but like she was using technology to put something out on her own at the age of 3.5, and it was incredible how she had seen it so many times that she just took ownership of that, and she was like, "This is how you do it, mommy," and and that's what we did.
That's amazing. That creative part is all the best. Hey, I want to ask Aileen one more question before we log off.
Wrap it up, yeah.
Yeah, so Aileen, like, how did you get involved with building an app? I mean, women in technology is pretty rare, and especially, in the app world. Can you tell us a little bit about what a phenomenal woman you are?
So, when I had my first son, when I had my first child, I was going to parks and talking Spanish and narrating everything. And American moms were coming up to me and saying, "Oh my God, that's amazing. I want to do the same thing, but I don't remember my Spanish, or I don't speak well enough, and I don't want to teach them bad Spanish." And so from there, like, I was like, okay, well, this is an opportunity. And I was like, okay, well, I already want to create like this Spanish environment for my child. What better way for him to be so proud of his own language as if his mom was teaching the same language, right? So then I started creating Spanish classes out of my home. And one of my students is my business partner, Christa, and she's a voice actress. And one day after class, she's like, "Hey, I don't know if you're interested, but I think your stuff is really good," because I had organized it by routines that we do with our kids and the language that we use, because it's repetitive. We say the same things over and over again. She's like, "I want to put this online, like an MP3, like download MP3. And I was like, "Why?" I go, "We're moms. We hang out with our phones all the time, like our iPhones, taking pictures. Like, why don't we create an app?" So that's how it started. So she was the designer and the voice, and I created the content, the phonetic system, and I don't know if you've noticed, but the app goes both ways, Spanish to English, English to Spanish. And so one of my friends that's Mexican did the Spanish side, and we just found someone overseas to create it.
I love it. Love those kinds of stories. You just do it, right? You make it work. You make it happen. I love it.
I mean, we found someone in Austin first. Like, we pitched the idea in these, like, meetups, like these co-founder meetups. And so someone approached us and said, "Hey, this looks like an interesting idea. I want in." And so there was this young guy that pretty much put it together. And then from there, we took it overseas to get it all cleaned up.
That's awesome.
That's exciting.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yep, that's what the community is all about. So, so I guess the last piece is that we just want to encourage everyone to just keep keeping on with bilingual kids, no matter what it looks like, no matter how often. Any exposure to second language is great. If that means you're going to take this and learn Spanish with Eileen's app and use it with your kids, perfect. If that means you're going to check out some of these apps and resources that we talked about, if that means that you want to have a screen-free household and use books, anything is great. But what we want to know from you guys on our question this week for social media is, what do you think about screen time? What are you using? What's working? What's not? And why? And so you can hashtag bilingualwe on any social media platform, and that will arrive to us. And we will we'll conglomerate kind of all of that together during our little 2-week break here before we start our next series, and just continue the conversation. You can also find a MamaLingua community on Facebook at MamaLingua, My MamaLingua, in both English and Spanish. And don't forget that all of the bilingual content is housed on my site at puravidamoms.com.
Oh, hola, perrito. Is that your first baby?
This is my first baby. She is 6 or 7.
Yep, I got one too. They're the best. All right, so it has been an amazing show. Let's all keep following that hashtag bilingual. Aileen, have a great move if that's possible. I don't know. It seems awkward. I hope. Make it safe. You're going home, so that's great. Congratulations. Thank you so much for joining us tonight amidst the chaos. Moving is always pretty crazy. We look forward to having more conversations with you. And we're really excited that MamaLingua has joined us and you've been amazingly supportive, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much, and thanks for the giveaway. That's awesome, and let's keep supporting each other, everyone. This is not simple. This is not easy, and let's as long as we can work together and not be isolated together, we can do this better. Christa, any last words before we go?
No last words, just buen viaje, Aileen. We'll miss you in Denver, but come back and visit once in a while, and hopefully we'll get to see you in Austin someday.
Thank you very much for having me, and congratulations, you two, for doing this. This is great. Having this conversation is important.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys. Have a great week. We'll be back in a few weeks, I think. I don't really know. We'll. I'm sure Krista's got a schedule for me somewhere, and I will read that soon. Always a pleasure. Have a great night, and thanks again. I'm going to end this broadcast in 5,